Hi there, welcome to one more episode of B.NET Wednesday Hangout. As you know, if you've been looking into or if you have been joining us every Wednesday, we here at B.NET have started this new initiative. We call it as Wednesday Hangout. We try to bring in a speaker and then present on a topic, 60 minutes, one topic, deep dive. So give a technology dose every week. Unfortunately, today we couldn't do the stipulated or the scheduled talk, which was on App Fabric in SharePoint, App Fabric caching in SharePoint 2013. We had some technical glitches at the speaker end, so we couldn't get him on board. Instead, what we are trying to do is, for the first time, we'll be doing an impromptu kind of a discussion with a couple of industry experts who are, day in and day out doing SharePoint related stuff. So this is going to be a next 30 to 45 minutes, a discussion around SharePoint. We have termed it as SharePoint, what, why, and for whom. So we get a lot of questions during our user group meets and everything like, is SharePoint a good, kind of a software solution to be in? Is it good to be a SharePoint developer? What is my career progression there? So a lot of confusion around the SharePoint. So today what we're going to do is we have two experts. Let me introduce Kamlesh Rao. He's a SharePoint trainer, SharePoint consultant, ex-SharePoint MVP. He's from Bangalore. And I have with me today Raghavendra Shanbag. He works as a lead consultant on SharePoint solutions for ITC Infotech India Limited, Bangalore. So Kamlesh and Raghavendra, welcome to B.NET Wednesday Hangout. Do you want to take a moment to kind of say anything else extra apart from these three liners that I have for you?
Thanks a lot, Lohit, for the quick introduction. Hi, Kamlesh, you are there?
Yeah, thank you, Lohit, for the introduction. Apart from this, the latest update is it's very cool in Bangalore. The weather is amazing for the last 2 days. So let's kick off.
Okay, so this is going to be like I'm going to play the devil's advocate, and then I have a couple of questions, and then I'll just ask you guys, and then you, being the industry experts, what you can do is you can take your turns to kind of answer them. So first question, everybody who pings me on Facebook is, what is SharePoint? That's kind of I know it's kind of very generic question, but still, many people are not kind of 100% sure about what exactly is SharePoint. What is it? Is it a software? Is it a solution? Is it a website? So what are your views on what is SharePoint? If somebody comes to you and you've been in the industry for quite some time now, and then if somebody asks you what is SharePoint, what would be your answers to that? Kamlesh?
Yeah, okay. So Microsoft officially defines it as it's the business collaboration platform for the enterprise and the web. So there are some words here which we need to go into deep here. There is something collaboration, it's a platform. Then we are talking about enterprise. When you say enterprise, it can be a small, medium, or large. And we are talking about web here. So these are the things what we should concentrate on when we are defining SharePoint. And the first thing which comes into picture is a web content management system. So SharePoint basically the core the WCM is one of the core capability of the SharePoint, which helps the business to share content on the web. There used to be days when we used to share content from file shares when we didn't had such products. So we used to have a file share or some kind of an FTP. We need to share a file or share a message or anything like that. So the whole idea of WCM is we are going away from those file shares, and we are utilizing the browser technology to share content on the browser and collaborate with the other peers in your day-to-day office environment. Apart from the WCM capability, there are some more points which I need to talk here, and which is document management and records management. So this is one very common term among the SharePoint industries who work on this product. Document management and record management is very basic example is your resume is a document which keeps changing time to time. So that's a document, whereas a record is something, for example, you have your birth certificate which doesn't change, or you are running a business and you are saying that uh, you are having a tax certificate or some kind of a license certificate, some kind of something which relates to government regulations and acts. So these things comes under records. So if you want to maintain records, if you want to make sure that you comply to all the government regulations, then SharePoint will help you there. That's one more important thing here. uh,
Okay.
colla- and so in other words, it helps you to collaborate and also integrate, apart from SharePoint. Within SharePoint, whatever you're sharing, you can also go outside SharePoint. You can integrate your other applications which you already built. You may have a Java platform, or you may have some XYZ platform. You can integrate data, you can search with those data, and it gives you some kind of an inbuilt security. And what most the more core one of the core strength of SharePoint is it is well integrated with Microsoft Office, the product which is used in all the computers which have Windows installed. Maybe we can hear from Raghavendra and continue with this question.
Yeah, so Raghavendra, what's your view if somebody comes to you and says like, "Hey, what is a SharePoint?" Yeah, we heard Kamlesh's views. So what do you have to say?
Most of the people who come to me and try to see what is SharePoint, they try to get a knowledge on that. The first thing they have in their mind is it's a content management. This content management was very valid till the launch of 2007. Post that, SharePoint has evolved in such a way that it's a complete package for intranet, extranet, social networks, BI, enterprise search, and for workflow automation. So now you can use SharePoint for as both as a software, as an application development platform also. You can automate your most of your business process within SharePoint. You can define the rights management in your system in a such a way that you can control the authority who has the edit, delete, and the contribute permissions using SharePoint. So
Okay.
another interesting feature which came up with SharePoint 2013 was the app model. So earlier, when people said that, okay, I want to learn SharePoint or I want to know more about it, so they had a mindset that they had a big learning curve. So going forward, with the 2013 release, Microsoft has made it very easy for the developers to see how we can learn SharePoint quickly and easily. So this part is very important for 2013. So you can integrate MVC models. You can try to see people who know ASP.NET. We can leverage the resources of ASP.NET with SharePoint. So again, so you don't have to pump most of your content in SharePoint, but there is a provision provided by SharePoint to index and search on the network system or any database.
Okay, so fairly, one thing that I understand from my little knowledge on SharePoint is this is more suited towards an enterprise, not as a standalone web application or not a standalone website. Is that a fair thing to say? Like, let's say I'm a small shop and I want to get a website built and then, a web application built for my maybe shop, which has a catalog, and then I want to have some sort of a checkout or a cart. So is SharePoint a answer for scenarios like this, like a small website or a small web app? Should SharePoint be used in those scenarios, or is SharePoint only suited for enterprise as a big enterprise? I have a huge workflows, I have a huge set of things that I have to maintain. So, how would you put this into perspective? Maybe Raghavendra, you can go first.
Yeah, sure. Not exactly. And SharePoint has evolved in such a way that it can be used to host a website as well as to create and use as an enterprise platform. So the one you mentioned, like a catalog, you want to maintain a product catalog and also in 2013, Microsoft. During the creation or development of 2013, Microsoft realized that people which has a e-commerce functionality and catalog functionality, they had a difficult time to build using share previous models like 2007 and 2010. But in 2013, Microsoft has released a product catalog feature which allows the end user to customize their product catalog in a very easy and a fast way. So if you're looking something for an product catalog point of view and all, then definitely yes, you can use SharePoint as a public website also.
Okay, so Kamlesh, do you have any views on that?
Yeah, adding to that, SharePoint comes in multiple editions, and one of the free edition is SharePoint Foundation, which can be best suited for the small organizations. And they just have to have a license for the Windows operating system, the server operating system, on which they can deploy SharePoint Foundation and start using the basic functionalities of SharePoint Foundation. It's something similar in the .NET world. You have Visual Studio Express or SQL Server Express, something like that. We have a light version of SharePoint which organizations can implement without any cost. But of course, if they want to build rich user interface and some competitive sites which should look something like WordPress, then it's highly recommended that they go for SharePoint 2013, which has HTML5 support. And it will also need, your organization also need to engage a developer or consultant to get your site up and running. In fact, you can also have a blog on your website which talks about the upcoming events, announcements, and all on your in your organization.
Okay, so you mean to say like, this is first time that I'm hearing there's something called a SharePoint Foundation. I've never come across that. So somebody wants to quickly utilize SharePoint and then create a website, so they can just put SharePoint Foundation, and then they should be ready to expose their website to the extranet, to the internet. So is that what the foundation will help me to do?
Yeah, that's right. It also comes with an inbuilt SQL Server Express, which is again free for use.
Oh, okay, nice. Okay, nice. So something new I learned today. So this is another interesting question that I keep getting. I'm a web guy, so I've been in the web for quite some time now. I started out in 2002 on ASP.NET 1.1. So many times I've seen like people come back here and then say, I am a ASP.NET developer, but I've been asked to get into SharePoint line. So how is it? Is it different from ASP.NET? Is SharePoint a completely different way of maybe coding or development or whatever? So as a trainer, consultant, MVP, so what do you have to kind of put thoughts on this particular kind of questions, Kamlesh?
Okay, that's something good, and I oftenly hear from a lot of students or a lot of people here. First thing here is it's good that a SharePoint developer has ASP.NET knowledge, because the base infrastructure of SharePoint is like that. It's built on IIS, that is your web server and application server, and as well as ASP.NET. In the backend, it maintains SQL Server, but I would say I want to use the word again, no SQL here, because we don't use any SQL commands or SQL syntax when we work with SharePoint. As a developer, administrators will use to some extent for backups, restore, and all. Otherwise, you need to forget SQL Server when you're doing SharePoint as a developer. What you need to remember here is all your ASP.NET skills, like what kind of deployments you used to do in ASP.NET. The same thing applies here, but SharePoint does it in an automated way. Unlike ASP.NET, you need to create a website manually by going to IIS, maybe create a virtual directory, put web.config, make some changes to that file to point to database server. So all those headache is gone. That's not available for the SharePoint developer. It's all about the site. You create the site from the Visual Studio. You use the SharePoint object model. That's one thing important you need to understand. The SharePoint server object model, it's one DLL which has all the class libraries of SharePoint. And Visual Studio 2010 and 2013, the latest versions, provide a better option for the developer to deploy this very easily. It packages as a solution which is called .wsp file, and it deploys it on the SharePoint server. And you don't have to worry about copying a file to the virtual directory or making any change. So that's the easy aspect of deployments. The main and going forward from 2013 onwards, apart from the server side object model, the developers, if you're a web developer, you should also focus on HTML5 and CSS technologies and and various JavaScript libraries. These are a lot of time savers to write a good, rich user interface applications for your business.
Nice. So, Raghavendra, do you have to add on to anything to that?
Yeah, definitely. Kamlesh had made a very valid point. Like for ASP.NET developers, they need to forget what is SQL Server. So if you are looking for moving from an ASP.NET to SharePoint, just then you need to make sure that you are ready to wash your hands from SQL Server. So which also make sure that your knowledge on Share on triggers, stored procedures, and all will drastically come down in the next couple of years. But that doesn't mean that you are not going to learn SQL. But there are scenarios where an developer needs to know how to use SQL with SharePoint also. Like in a scenario where most of by default SharePoint provides Windows authentication. Okay, and when organization decides like okay it needs to expose their SharePoint website or web application to an external users, there are multiple ways of authenticating this particular scenario. So the commonly used scenario in ASP.NET is like forms authentication. So you can definitely implement forms authentication in SharePoint. So that's where when you have to interact with ASP.NET membership provider and SQL membership provider. So that's a particular scenario where you have to know a little bit of your SQL server also. The another scenario which .NET developer need to keep in mind that SharePoint doesn't mean that if you're planning to work on SharePoint doesn't mean that you will completely move out from SQL Server. There are scenarios like business intelligence where you have to create views and expose those views to SharePoint, and you might have to provide an interface in SharePoint which will push data to SharePoint. So based on the version of SharePoint you are using, you can either write a custom solution or by default SharePoint 2013 provides you an ability to push data from SharePoint interface to the DB itself.
Okay, nice. So, one thing I kind of understood from both of your viewpoints is you being a ASP.NET developer is good to move on to SharePoint because you're ultimately working on the same pipeline of ASP.NET. Yes, the object model is different. It's no more the page model like the whatever you would do with a user controls and all those things, but SharePoint has its own object model to kind of get into the objects, whatever I need, the list that I need. So, but my underlying, foundation, my underlying knowledge on ASP.NET, it's going to continue with SharePoint. And it's not that, big scary thing that, okay, I'm moving to SharePoint, but it's pretty good because you understood how a request response works. Apart from that, only thing that somebody may not want to kind of brush upon is the object model. So that's pretty encouraging for somebody who wants to move to SharePoint. And another interesting question that I keep getting nowadays, it's been, I believe, after Microsoft announced SharePoint 2013. I'm a HTML5 front-end developer, meaning I know pretty well how to do HTML5 based UIs. Can I are now because of this? I think SharePoint 2013 does support an HTML5 based UI. So because of this, people have been asked to move to SharePoints too. Like they are getting maybe opportunities, or they may be getting the requirements to work on SharePoint. So how does a particular developer or somebody who has an HTML5 front end development skills fit into SharePoint? Is there an easy fit in, or how is it, Raghavendra?
Yeah, a very nice question, Loit. It's been a trend, like people are moving to apps and they want to use, any organization want to build an application in a such a way that it has to be compatible with as much as devices possible. So they can use on iPad, they can use on Android, the device, tabs, and desktop. So with HTML5, we have this flexibility of having the same interface. So in SharePoint, his SharePoint 2013 specifically, is rich with REST APIs, and Microsoft has released such rich APIs with 2013 that it's very easy to develop an app or in any application, single page application using HTML5 and jQuery and jQuery frameworks. So, so that most of the applications and project managers are looking for application which can be easily built with as fast as possible. So this is where ASP.NET web developers can be leveraged. Prior to SharePoint 2013, yeah, definitely you can use HTML and jQuery, but it was limited. But in 2013, one person needs to, a ASP.NET developer needs to know how to use a web service efficiently, and if he has a knowledge on jQuery, then it will be very easy for him to build a SharePoint app. The app can be a desktop app or a mobile app. It will be pretty easy.
Nice. So, Kamlesh, your thoughts?
Yeah, I echo with Raghavendra. So this word app is come in SharePoint 2013 before whatever the developers used to call web parts. So that has been renamed to app. So it's everything app. You create a app. Actually, you're creating a web part, and you create these apps both for your on-premise installation of SharePoint, and there is one more version, online version of SharePoint called Office 365. So if you want to create applications which to reach out multiple audiences on multiple devices, then this is the recommended way Microsoft is um, putting it forward. In fact, going forward, Microsoft is recommending to use the client object model instead of the server side object model, because slowly in another couple of next maybe another one or two SharePoint on-premise release, afterwards everything will be on cloud. That's what I saw one statement on one of the blog.
Nice. So, these two, developer forays is been who has been pinging me asking for, okay, I'm an ASP.NET developer. I've been put into SharePoint. Or hey, I'm an HTML5 developer. I've been put into SharePoint. So, I would say they have pretty good scope to be on the SharePoint. Then, this thing about developing apps on SharePoint is pretty interesting. So, I would suggest, like, whoever is listening, and if they're ASP.NET developer, HTML5 developer, and you've been asked to work on SharePoint, don't worry. I think it's a pretty good lush green field over there, and then you have a lot of opportunities for that. So this comes to my next question, which is, when should you choose SharePoint as a software or as a solution? Is there a checklist that you guys would? I'm pretty sure you will be working on requirements. When a requirement come in, of course, you would have to kind of go ahead and say, yes, we can use maybe standard ASP.NET web application development, build up a new site using ASP.NET, or no, this is where the SharePoint fits. So do you guys kind of follow any checklist or any guidelines or any thumb rules, maybe that over your experience that you have come across? So maybe that would be good to kind of hear from your thoughts. So Kamlesh?
Yeah, the first thing, basic question here is we need to probe is what's the IT shop at customer. So are they Microsoft platform or non-Microsoft, or within Microsoft, do they already have some Visual Studio applications running, or do they have a first of all license for SharePoint and what they're looking for? So we'll run through some checklist and what kind of applications they want to host and run in their organization, and we will uh, see where SharePoint can fit in those scenarios. From the licensing, if they don't need any enterprise edition features, so we can always suggest Foundation, because the developments are faster in SharePoint. You have all the infrastructure in ASP.NET. If you want any ASP.NET application, when you start from scratch, the first thing what any developer will do is write a login.aspx. So here we can eliminate that completely. We don't have to worry about authentication. It will have its own way of authentication which can be configured by the administrator. It can connect to your Active Directory and give you access to the user. So authentication is been, you can forget about authentication part. You don't have to write any code. You are saving a time. Then second thing is you are saving time not to create database design, database tables, stored procedures, etc. And the third thing is the ease of use. You are giving more features to more control to the business users. That's not possible typically in a ASP.NET application. In a ASP.NET application, you typically have a form and you fill the fields. So here, apart from form and fields or columns, whatever you call, in SharePoint we have a concept of pages. So it's like a free text. You want to write some article or you want to update a page and a news on the site, you can do that very easily without a with very minimal development effort. So these are some things what I will see. Then if at the same time, if you want to integrate your uh, information which is coming from external systems, enterprise systems like SAP or ERP or Dynamics, so there again you can save some effort, because SharePoint has certain inbuilt features like uh, BCS services, so they can communicate with these external systems very easily. We can think of some of these sessions. These are some interesting sessions what we can take up in some of our future webinars, like a full-fledged demo of how BCS works to communicate with external systems. Of course,
Cool.
we cannot see SAP and all, but we can use Oracle or some another SQL Server database as an external system and see the demo. The last thing I want to say here is the choice. From the choice perspective, I will also decide the license I already I covered. I also want to talk about the forms development, because any office will have a requirement of forms. A lot of paper forms will be lying, or forms in form of Excel words will be there. So there are certain products, like InfoPath and SharePoint Designer, where you can easily edit the forms and deploy them on your environment. Of course, InfoPath, the future is not so good, because Microsoft has made it dead during the last conference. But there are some alternatives which is coming up, and we will be definitely hearing some good updates on what are the easier options for the forms technology from Microsoft. That's what I want to say.
Cool. So you do follow some of your kind of checklist. So Raghavendra, do you? I'm pretty sure as a lead consultant for ITC Infotech, you would be involved in a lot of maybe an RFP or requirements gathering or whatever. So is there something that you follow as a best practice in the industry?
Yeah, but it's a very difficult question to answer, like whether you want to use software as a software, SharePoint as a software or as a solution, because many times we end up in a scenario where like the client requirements are in such a way that client would ask you to give a proposal and a solution on ASP.NET and as well as in SharePoint. So at the end, it
Typical of the customers, so you cannot help with that.
yeah, so it is always difficult. So sometimes it's end up that more than we choosing what SharePoint should be used as, the client chooses based on the budget and the resource allocation.
Okay.
So, but still, SharePoint is used very vastly now, and it can be used as a both as a software as a solution. It can be used as an extranet, intranet, and as well as an enterprise search engine. Since SharePoint provides a lot of integration points as complex that uh, as of now, I don't see any limitation for which SharePoint cannot be used. So my simple statement is like, yes, you can use SharePoint for most of the thing you want to do.
Okay, so well, anyway, so you're saying both of you are saying like it depends on the scenario. There's a famous quote like, if somebody asks you a question, it's always it depends. So again, so for this question about SharePoint should be used as a software or as a solution, it depends on the scenario. The customer is going to come out, and then what they want to use. Based on that, you kind of have your own checklist, and then what SharePoint supports, and then finally kind of say yes, SharePoint fits here or not. Okay, that's fine. Okay, we are down to our last question, and this question has been asked to me plenty of times over Facebook. Somebody pings me and kind of just ask this out, saying like, okay, what do I do? So the famous question, or the most popular question on SharePoint is the career progression or the ladder, as we call it, the career ladder on if somebody gets into SharePoint line. Uh, are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, so career progression or career ladder in the SharePoint line. Maybe it would be good if you guys can say, like, I'm pretty sure, I didn't ask your experience levels, but I'm pretty sure you guys are pretty experienced in the industry on SharePoint. So how did you guys start up in SharePoint? How did you guys progress? And what is it that you would want to tell maybe, people who are uh, kind of getting into this particular line?
Okay, maybe I'll start.
Yep.
So, uh, I remember the first time I saw SharePoint was where I was given a site and asked to do some administration. It's called, the role is actually called site administrator. I need to manage that site, make sure everything is going fine, the content is right on the site, and if tomorrow anybody asks to make any changes to the content, I should update that content. So that is where I came to know about this product. Otherwise, I've never seen this product in my life. I was a ASP.NET developer. So from that time, slowly I started discovering this product and learning the free edition what we have. And I like the architecture. It's called farm architecture. We what SharePoint has, the way they implement. And I digged into the development approach. And as of now, when I see back from the project roles whatever SharePoint gives, to name couple of them, you can start your career as a SharePoint developer if you have been coding in your whole career. That's what is advised. uh, and if you are a administrator, you're a kind of a IT pro guy who is managing servers, managing operating systems, and you like to take up more responsibilities and learn administrating some new technologies, you can think about SharePoint administrator. uh, then there are certain other roles like if you see some of the job portals, you will also see SharePoint designer. This is one of the role. The SharePoint designer is the person who is designing the look and feel of the site, playing around with master pages. So this is another role, third role. So that's to repeat: SharePoint developer, SharePoint administrator, SharePoint designer. Then one more role we hear from the business scenario is SharePoint business users. They are also called, they have various names like power users or information workers. So these are like expert users in SharePoint. Something like, if I have a problem in Microsoft Excel, I will go to a person who knows, who has worked on a lot of features of Excel to get help. So something like that in your organization, you can find these power users who knows how to control SharePoint servers in and out. But they are not the developers. They cannot code. But if they can change the settings quickly for you. They can make sure they can uh, find out where the file is, or go to recycle bin and restore the file. That type of activities they can do. And at a top level, the most experienced guy in this SharePoint world will be either a SharePoint architect or consultant. So these guys will see everything in his life, whether development or administration. He will be playing with these all areas, and after gaining the skills, they will be able to help businesses plan, design, and implement SharePoint solutions. So these are various roles and responsibilities what we have in the SharePoint world. Just to recap, we have SharePoint designer, then administrator, then developer, then a business user or power user or a information worker. Then we have SharePoint architect or consultant. This is what is all about in the industry. And
Wow,
the
that's
last,
pretty huge.
yeah, it's pretty huge. And I have seen organizations where in a small organization you may get an opportunity to play dual role. So that's something good. It works out good for organization as well as for a learner. But in some large organizations, the roles are very much freezed, where you are a dedicated administrator. You have to do these activities only. You cannot jump back to designing or development or vice versa. So that's what one more thing. So as much as possible, initially you start with one role. As and when you increase your experience, try to pitch into the other areas to lead to target for a SharePoint architect or a consultant type of job.
Well, so if I understand correctly, there's a lot of opportunities on the SharePoint side of it, right? That's what you're trying to say. Like, there are different roles, there are different opportunities, there are different challenges to actually work with SharePoint. I'm a ASP.NET developer, so for me, it's just build a site, deploy it, and that's it, done. But what you're trying to say is SharePoint has varied roles. SharePoint has varied, things to take care, right? So that's what you're hinting at, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Because any software, whether it's SharePoint or .NET, somebody has to maintain, somebody has to plan it, some governance has to be there. So the governance is one of the important fact in SharePoint. Although SharePoint is easy to deploy, but tomorrow, if without a governance, people starts using it, they keep files in any site. Then the site size keeps growing, and you will have a performance impact. So we need to plan it the best way how SharePoint can search and give you the data. That's concept of metadata settings and search engine settings, all those things somebody has to do some settings there. A lot of configuration oriented it is highly.
Okay, yeah, nice. So, I don't know why, but I've seen many juniors, when I say juniors, it's like 2 years experience level. When they are just in the industry, they take nearly a year to kind of get trained in a company. Then they were doing something, then suddenly, after their 2 years or 3 years, they're put into SharePoint. They kind of get scared and saying like, oh, man, I've been put into SharePoint. Is this a good line? Blah, blah, blah. So, what do you think maybe those kind of scary things come into these devs? I mean, as an young developer, you should be ready to accept a challenge, but have you come across something like that? Do you have any kind of a best wishes to the guys, like kind of a wording, some good words to them, saying like, hey, don't worry, just take the chance. So what do you feel?
Yeah, this is something a different question, difficult question to answer for me because um, point number one, SharePoint needs a good investment. I'm talking about the hardware.
Correct.
So if you are a developer and you want to play with it, nothing comes without trying it out. You need to try, you need to play, you need to break, you need to maybe delete the sites, you need to format the farm or bring the farm up. So that you cannot do in a real production or development environment because there are a lot of productive hours going on in your office. So you need a good test bed where you can play with it. So that is the biggest scare in the industry where many of them who are having their existing laptop which they used to do pretty cool development with ASP.NET with 2 GB of RAM, they were very happy with it. But
Correct.
now being SharePoint, point number one is you need a good amount of RAM, and being a 64-bit product, you need a 64-bit operating system. Not only the client, you need a server based operating system. Although from the software point, Microsoft is something great that Microsoft provides trial versions of all their products, which is very handy for developers. But still there are many people who are facing challenges to have a hardware to host those softwares. That's the biggest
Agree.
challenge here. Although we have the cloud platform where you can create trial VM or wherever you have free VMs, but again there we have bandwidth issues, so we need to have a good internet connections to try them. Apart from this, if there is a opportunity for you to invest and learn, my personal thing is I would not buy a fancy gadget. Instead of that, I'll save that for my next laptop to learn to build a SharePoint system and get used to it.
Very well said. That's pretty cool. Instead of spending on a phone, just keep it, put it on a laptop, get a good laptop, maybe an i7 with what 8 GB of RAM, which should be good, and then yeah, put up SharePoint, then spin it up, as you said, break it up, and then kind of play around, and then you get a confidence, and then say yes, I can do this. Yeah, rightly, very very rightly put. Unfortunately, I think we have lost Raghavendra. I think he has a technical glitch, and then I don't think he can come back, and then we are at the end of the hour, 45 minutes that we had stipulated for this. So it's been a good hangout. We tried this for the first time. Just a impromptu discussion, SharePoint, what, why, and for whom. I hope your thoughts, your viewpoints will help somebody who is getting onto SharePoint, who is getting new to the SharePoint world, and then kind of this will give them a kind of a confidence as to, okay, I can get in there, I can do it. So thank you very much to Kamlesh. I think you had a busy day, but still you took time to discuss with us. And then of course I cannot get Raghavendra back. He's dropped off. He has some technical glitch. So thanks to Raghavendra too for being with us to share his thoughts and views. So those of you who have been with us live, thank you very much for coming into the Wednesday Hangout. And those of you who are watching it on demand, stay tuned. We will have more of these things coming up. Next week we'll have another SharePoint. This whole month of May is a SharePoint month for the Wednesday Hangout. So we'll have another couple of speakers coming up next week. Is another topic on SharePoint. So stay tuned. Watch our Facebook page. It's www.facebook.com/groups/bdotnet or facebook.com/group/sp Bangalore. SP for SharePoint and Bangalore. Just be there, and then you can pretty much get to know what we discuss on this hangout. And have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
and to end, if I request you to provide feedback and what kind of sessions you're looking for in future, so that we
Yep.
can arrange for speakers and plan more hangouts and make the SharePoint group active.
Very well said. So it's facebook.com/groups/sp Bangalore or facebook.com/groups/b.net, BDOTNET. So you can just be anywhere. We are all part of this whole groups, and then we will take care. And then, as Kamlesh rightly said, feedback. It's very important for us. And so today we just end this Wednesday hangout, and then we hope you'll be with us for next week too. So have a good night, guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.